Our world is one unit, and yet we have artificially created different countries and selfishly focused on what is good for each of us. What the world needs today is effective collaboration between nations to address critical issues such as climate change, reducing poverty through focusing on education, health, and job creation. What the world needs today is not to highlight our differences based on color and religion, but with compassion and care, embrace and respect our differences. What the world does not need is to be obsessively focused on our GDPs and the armament race, but have deep care and concern for the well-being of all. World needs us to teach our future generation to be good human beings so that we do not end up using our technology and our power to harm and hurt each other. The world needs to create a safe, meaningful, and worthwhile space for all to live for generations to come.
Good afternoon and welcome back. We thank our title sponsor, Celebrite Media, for the wholehearted support. We all know and believe that to become a leader, there are special qualities that one needs to nurture. Corporate world is a practical one, and it may be difficult to accept that spirituality plays a role in creating good leadership. Let us see what our eminent guests have to say in this discussion on spirituality in leadership. We welcome our guests in the studio, Mr. Tapan Singhel, Dr. Reverend Marietjie and Dr. Manjari Prabhu. Tapan Singhel has a rich experience of over 30 years in the insurance industry. He is one of the founding members of Bajaj Allianz General Insurance and has been with the company for over 20 years. He is MD and CEO for close to 10 years. An avid social media influencer, Tapan has over 6 lakh followers on LinkedIn and has been recognized as the LinkedIn's top voice in India in both 2018 and 2019. He also chairs the CII National Committee on Insurance and Pensions. He is the recipient of multiple awards for his excellent contribution to the insurance industry. Dr. Reverend Marietjie, a non-denominational ordained minister and marriage officer, is licensed to conduct marriages, christenings, and memorials. She holds a master's degree in Old Testament and religious studies and a doctorate in religious studies. She is also a personal mentor to many people seeking a spiritual path. She completed her correspondence studies with the International Center for Yoga Education and Research at the Anand Ashram in Pondicherry, India. Presently, she is the principal of the ANJALI School of Yoga, South Africa. Dr. Manjari Prabhu is an award-winning international author of 18 books, mystery and thriller writer, a short filmmaker, and the curator and founder director of 2 international festivals, Pune International Literary Festival and International Festival of Spiritual India for Humanity and Wisdom. She is also an animal welfare activist promoting caring and adoption of stray dogs for more than 35 years. May I request Dr. Prabhu to lead the discussion, please?
You have to unmute yourself, Dr. Prabhu.
Yes, sorry about that. So thank you, Renu, and Mr. Singhel and Dr. Vento. Welcome to IFSI. Pleasure to have you here, even if it's virtual, and in this really interesting session and topic, spirituality and leadership. And I'm going to plunge straight into this. And you both have a fantastic body of work, are very much into spirituality, are leaders, leading huge organizations and yoga schools, and such a vast body of work. I'm going to go right into it and ask you, what makes a good leader? I think I'll start with Mr. Singhel. What makes a good leader?
Dr. Prabhu, thank you. It's an honor being here. And I think with people like you and Doctor here, the kind of experience that you have and the work that you have done, it's very humbling to be here to begin with. Yeah. I think on leadership, I can talk about my experience. Every leader is a good leader. I think that is how I would define it. So my experience, when I look at early on in my leadership career, when I was younger, I think to me, leadership was simply about doing business, about acquiring more customers and steering to the company to greater heights, stronger balance sheets. I think those were the obsessions. But somewhere in the journey, I realized that I think there's a greater purpose of the business we do, and the business serves and can serve the society at a much different level, and we can make a difference to our country, our people, and business can be the vehicle to do so. Let me give you an example here. I think if you look at the Prime Minister's scheme of ensuring 40 crores Indian below poverty line and the lower middle class, which is there, just the impact of it is that the average lifespan of Indians will move over by 5 to 7 years. The healthcare infrastructure will improve because obviously now people can pay for a good amount of treatment, and they can afford treatment because insurance which has happened there. Or the insurance required for the crops in India. And I think if you look at the suicide rates in the farmers' community has gone down after the crop insurance was implemented all across. So I think the impact that the business can have on society is huge. On the people that we have can be huge. 100,000 people's livelihood we have been able to influence and make a difference, right? From the time when they didn't have enough to eat to a time when they own Mercedes and they move forward, or the ambition to have at least influencing 1 million lives. I think this transformation in me in terms of how I look at business and the vehicle of it in terms of making and doing good to society had a powerful impact on me. I think that is where the leadership transformation happens. And now I look at, I'm more contented with what I do. My business is better, my results are better, my achievements are compared to the time when I was very focused only on getting my numbers right and doing so. So this transformation, I think in the process of leadership is something to observe, that as you move towards more humanity and thinking good of others, your business also starts doing much better than what it was doing earlier. I think some learnings I had in my career path, Dr. Prabhu, if it answers your question.
Difference, use the business to make a difference in people's lives. Really great philosophy, and we heard of it. I mean, I follow you on Twitter and also on LinkedIn, and I know how people are always so grateful to you. Whenever there's an achievement, there's so much gratitude towards your contribution in their lives, and I think that is the sign of a true leader. So, Dr. Venter, tell me. I know you've done your doctoral studies in religion and all, but what does leadership really mean to you? And then we'll talk about religion and spirituality. But first, what does leadership mean to you?
Well, if somebody is in a leadership position, it means that that person is leading a group or being in charge of a group, and that person knows something of something. And therefore, it is a tremendous big responsibility to lead others. So leadership can be or refer to parents, teachers, governments, politics, religion, businesses, and so much more. It is true that students and followers look up at a leader, and they often ascribe to the leader, I suppose, powers that the leader didn't even know initially or thought of. There's a lot of pressure on a leader to keep their followers satisfied and happy. It's also true that when you are in a position of leadership, there's always the possibility of growing a big ego. And hand in hand with a big ego in leadership comes the need for power, for greed, for control. And this can lead to devastation, to lies, manipulation, corruption, and even wars. That's why I think it is of absolute importance that spirituality should enter into leadership, because humans have certain abilities, talents, and I think inborn spiritual attributes. And we have forgotten about our spiritual attributes, and especially living in a very dense and physical world. So we tend to suffer, we tend to live in fear, in pain and anger and resentment. So I think a leader who is mindful of his or her spiritual abilities, someone who has an insight as well as an understanding of the bigger picture of life, one who is actually practicing and living his or her spiritual principles, has the opportunity to influence and bringing about a heightened awareness in their followers. And with such, I think, divine mindfulness, we as humans can move into our divine potential. We can transform what Dr. Ananda always says, from doings into beings. So a true leader for me is really someone that can lead the others to their ultimate good and their authentic selves.
That's great. Since you spoke about ego, I know what Lao Tzu said. A leader is one whom people barely know exists. And when his work is done and his aim is fulfilled, they feel as if they've done everything. So yes, when you keep the ego aside, a leader is one who makes others feel that they have done all their work. I mean, that's what a good leader is supposed to be. Coming to you, Mr. Singhel, you've got 6 lakh plus followers, a history of 30 plus years in this field, and all I can see your spiritual posts, and you do talk shows, you try to bring people together. I want to know how this all began. At what point did you feel that you could lead people, with social media in your company? When did you start, and how did this journey begin? And just tell us a little bit about the whole thing.
Interesting, Dr. Prabhu. I think it became a very simple philosophy that if any customer wants to reach me, and I have close to 120 million customers.
Wow.
So if they want to reach me, and if they follow the protocol of bureaucracy, it'll be impossible for them to reach me. So I thought, how can it be that they can reach me wherever and whenever they want to communicate or say something? So I opened social media posts, and I thought LinkedIn would be the right place to open. I just opened it for that account. It has my email address, it has my mobile number also, and that's why I put it up. Once I opened that, I thought I should start writing something. If you have opened an account, it should not be just a kind of a dumb account, but at least start putting something on that. And then what should I write about? I thought, let me write about my experiences, my learnings, my failures, and what have I seen in this, or how I see business, how I see community, how I see society coming through. And I just started writing what I felt like. And I started seeing that people started appreciating what I'm writing, and a lot of started relating to that. So while in relation to the customer grievances or customer feedback, it also became a tool and mechanism to connect to a lot of people about life experiences and my learning through those life experiences, and people, amazing people like you whom I have met, and put your stories and other stories also about your life experiences and what is that people gain from it. So it's just something that somebody has gone through some experiences, some transformations, some journey, some setbacks, and just put it there so that people want to pick things up, they want to figure out some solutions, they can do so. I think that is how, Dr. Prabhu, this journey began. It's been a very interesting journey for me because I met a lot of interesting people. I interviewed you also, as a kind of amazing work that you have done, and put it there. I got a lot of feedback on terms of that people have been able to associate, learn from somebody else's experience. I think that is what life is about, Sometimes you learn from other experiences, sometimes you go through your own experiences. Putting those stories together makes a huge difference. I think that is how this social media thing started. It just picked it up, Dr. Prabhu. It just started with small intent that if you want to reach me, they can reach me. And it became into a platform where sharing experiences and transformation of life started happening. So it was.
But you're an influencer. You're an influencer. People, and so that makes a lot of difference.
That's incidental, Dr. Prabhu. I think if you do good, the rest is incidental. It keeps on happening.
True. I agree with you. Dr. Venter, what about you? I mean, you run a school for yoga, the ANJALI School of Yoga. You've studied religion. How did you combine all of this together, including your doctoral studies? I mean, where do you think religion, leadership, spirituality, does it all come together at some point, or are they separate, parallel tracks going on in a life?
A very interesting question, and it has not been easy. Because the minute you are talking about certain things, you have organized religion on the one side, forcing you to believe in the ways they want to. And over and against that, spirituality came in as something that is different to organized and structured dogmatic religion. Throughout the eons of time, humanity has followed one or other religion. And the word religion actually means to bind us back. And it's usually to bind us back to something that is divine or even God. And that is good indeed. But dogma and personal power have killed the essence of religion in our world. So for me, that has been a tough time, having been involved in yoga, running a yoga school, and at the same time studying religion. So I have gone through a lot of years of being judged and having been told that I am involved in something that is demonic or satanistic. And in the end, you know, when we talk about these things, if you can be true to your authentic self, if you really know who you are and what you are made up of, that speaks louder than words can say. And so throughout the years, we just hang in there, shine our light, and live our example. And spirituality is really for me to something that take me back inside of myself, our inner divinity, whatever word you want to give it, a practice that enhances us as beings and that honors holiness inside of all of us. I truly think if we can honor that and respect each one for his or her opinion and allow them the time, the space, and the opportunity to express who they are, within that lies authenticity that rubs off on everyone else.
Dr.
Yeah,
Prabhu, may I add something here because it's
sure,
interesting
sure.
conversation to have.
Absolutely.
I was just reminded of yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, when Sage Patanjali wrote
Yes.
thousands of years back.
Yes.
I think that in one sutra he mentions that even if you don't believe in God, you can still be spiritual. So I think
Yes.
contrary to the general feeling that religion, and spiritualism have to be, intertwined. I think I found it so amazing that thousands of years back there was this wise sage who was mentioning that spiritualism is a scientific process, and I think we heard doctor speak about it's an inward journey of figuring out and understanding that well. And religion can be a path to it. And if you don't follow any religion also and not any God also, you can still be very spiritual. I have not found this in any other book anywhere. I found it so intriguing, so interesting to see. So I think what I want to demystify about spiritualism is that it's a very simple scientific process, a stepwise process, which anybody can achieve. Anybody anywhere in the world can achieve that. It's not a very complex process as made out to be at times, is my understanding of it. It's an interesting topic I thought I just put in.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I think the aim of this festival is exactly the same, to demystify spiritualism and make it available to the common masses and tell them everyone and anywhere can start being spiritual. You don't have to go to the Himalayas and sit and meditate to be spiritual. There are inspiring people and stories and sources all around us to do it. So I completely agree with you. I think one of the sutras also says that when you do anything with your heart is the way. Your heart tells you the path to spirituality. I don't know which sutra it is, but I know it is there and I've used it in my book. Anyway, coming to that, having said all of this, being spiritual is fine. Being a leader, there's so many tensions and, it's like you're carrying the world on your shoulders because you are the one who's ultimately going to be held responsible. In your experiences, in both your experiences, has there ever been any such incident which was so nightmarish that you had to dive deep into your spiritual well to kind of get out of that situation. Has any such thing ever happened to any one of you? I'll start with Mr. Singhel. Do you have any such experience?
Yeah, I think there are many experiences, Dr. Prabhu. I think I've yet to find a person who did not have difficult times or difficult experiences. No, I think, and we also heard about the story of Lord Buddha when a lady went to him and said that my son has died, please revive. And Gautam Buddha says that please go and bring me some grain from a house in which no death has happened. No, by the time the lady comes back and she says that no, I realize no what you want to communicate. So I think there's not any individual I can find who would not have gone through difficult times. There are two options when you go through a difficult time. One option is that you get so overwhelmed by the difficult times that you start losing yourself completely into it, and you get into a spiral of negativity or hopelessness, or into a spiral of giving up, and you become so weak in your own mental self that life seems very meaningless to you. And the other option is when you get into difficult times is to be able to look at it on a very different plane in terms of having one compassion towards yourself to begin with, to understand that this too will pass. Third, the learnings from it, and fourth, how can you make a difference to other people's life, even if you are going through a difficult times. The attitude to look at everybody else with a lot of compassion, and your difficulty should become an example to others in terms of that if this happens, how would they come out of it, and what solution can you provide out of it, and how do you gain strength in the most difficult times and emerge victorious out of it, is something that is an option, which is not a difficult option that once you realize to take it off. So instead of going down the spiral way of negativity, first love yourself, have huge compassion for yourself, then see how can you still make a difference in other people's life, and have a lot of compassion, gratitude towards what you have, and start working towards it step by step, and you come out of it. I think, and once you do it, then the next difficulty becomes easier to manage, and then the third difficulty becomes no difficulty, and the fourth time you are in a much more powerful plane than what you are. So this journey is something that every individual has to go through it. The choice is ours. How do we handle when we go through a difficult phase? But difficult phase, all of us go through. Something is very, very clear. So I can give you many examples, Dr. Prabhu, but I think, as I said, it's very difficult for me to find somebody who's not gone through any difficult phases. How do you handle that? Is what is very critical.
No, absolutely. And to handle any difficulty, with the presence of mind, you do need to have a kind of basic emotional grounding and stability, and the ability to dive into yourself to find that strength that is required for a situation. I think that comes with spirituality and being a good leader. I'm going to come back to being a leader, but because that's how you take people along with you and solve questions and whatever. Dr. Venter, what about you?
Wow, a lot of things have been said now. I agree. To define spirituality is an ongoing process because it means something different for everyone. And for years, we have used that term very loosely, very easily. Most of the times where I'm coming from, the word spirituality was used like something different than organized religion. And now I think as we have moved on through our time, we would have to redefine maybe the word spirituality, and each one will do that for him or herself. I also believe that each individual must do his or her best in the ways that that you are trained in, or that you've studied, or part of your culture, part of your way of thinking, because each individual is actually a leader. And anything we do, and everything we do, rubs off on other people. And I said earlier that I think a good leader is somebody that leads you to your ultimate good. And then I remember what Gandhi once said, that we must become the change in the world. That change that we expect, we have to become that first. And that is the secret of authentic and spiritual leadership, that you make an effort as a leader to know who you are, so that when you then have a thought, we know that becomes a word. We also know that words will become actions, and actions our habits, and habits our character, and our character our culture. So a tremendous responsibility on somebody that sits in front of a class or leads a company or any of the other things that we have mentioned, that we can stay true to ourselves at all times.
Yes, lovely. Very, very well said. And I agree with you about actions rubbing off onto others, because we are all connected. And whatever we do, yes, whatever we do is also what is going to affect the others. And it's a chain effect, basically. Having said that, what would you say? A good leader, I feel, is, I had read it somewhere, but I also believe that you should have respect for yourself, respect for others, but you have to take the responsibility for everything. So when it comes to that, and when you meet all kinds of people, sometimes diabolical, sometimes people who have hidden agendas, especially within a framework of a business, when you meet all these kinds of people, how do you deal with people who are all not just negative, but sometimes even evil, sometimes people who want your ill and or want the bad for your company or for your school, or that kind of a thing? How do you deal with people and that kind of evil negative energy around you, Mr. Singhel?
Okay, so when I was younger, Dr. Prabhu, the way would be an eye for an eye. So somebody wants to play politics, I would try and think, how do I checkmate that person, and how do I also counter, how do I get rid of that person, and it would be like a warfare. I think that is how it was.
Yeah.
But over time, I saw that it's getting very energy consuming. It would bring down my productivity levels. It would bring down me as a person, even if I win the battle. So let's say even in this political game, I win it, but I would be a very weak person at the end of it. I think that is something which I realized. And then the transformation happened in me. I think then what happened was that I started thinking of good people also who would try and think ill of me. So I think that when I started doing so, I saw a transformation in the other person also. So they would still try to do for their best interest. Everybody would think from their own perspective. So it's not right or wrong. I think they would be thinking from their perspective, whatever is the power game or the game. Maybe they are right. Why should I think that from my perspective it is wrong of it? I should still think good of that person. I should try my best intent to still do good for the person who is going to or is harming me from my perspective. Maybe that harm comes out for good. So let me again revise the question a bit, Dr. Prabhu, and ask all of you who are listening to it, and you think of all the negative that was done to you, and you actually think in the past that negative actually brought a lot of positive for you and made you who you are. If that negative didn't happen, you would not be where you are today in terms of your development and your life story. I think there's a lot of gratitude to people who actually bought, as per you, negativity or ill towards you, because of them, you actually became much stronger and much better as a human being, and a more spiritual person than what you would have been if they had not been in your life. So they have done a lot of good for you. So have a lot of gratitude towards them and be grateful towards them. I think two things happened when I turned my attitude towards being thankful of people who actually would think of harming me. I saw transformation in them also towards me. I think somewhere the positivity that you bring even to a negative person transform the person also to a large extent. And some of them actually became very good friends of mine over a period of time. And even when it's the evil definition that we have, we still think that person is good. There's no person in this world where there is no good in that person. So that person may be behaving a certain parameter from his belief or his circumstances or what it is. If you have compassion, love, and gratitude, and even if you feel the person do you evil, and that's actually going to be helpful to make you a stronger person, you will see a transformation happening. And for you, the environment goes much better. I've seen this transformation happen for me and my team and my people around, or my customers or advisors. I see a very powerful team now with a lot of positivity and a lot of high energy, just with a simple attitude of mind that I think I should do good to people. And if somebody wants to harm me, I should do more good to that person and stand and be very compassionate with that person. I think that was my transformation, Dr. Prabhu, over time.
No, but that's not a simple attitude at all. It requires a big heart to still do good to people who want to do you harm. And I'm going to narrate a very small, quickly button and a very funny incident, because you talked about do good. In the first year of PILF in 2013, we had no sponsors. Totally, we were doing our first experience, and we put up authors in different hotels. So there was one author, I'm not going to name him, one author who went around with a placard at PILF saying, I am not a bestseller author. Why? Because we put him in a small hotel and there were some others in a big hotel. Now, so at that point, it really angered me that, no one was doing a festival in her. I was putting in my energy and everything. But later I reached out to him And, I re-invited him back to the festival. I put him up in a good place. I mean, I showed him what went wrong the first time and why we couldn't do it. Today, he's one of my best friends. So I did not let that negativity affect me. So I just want, this was not to do good, but this was to transform him in a different way. So yes, transformation can happen, but it was a funny incident, and I remind him of that all the time. Whenever he comes to PILF, whatever I say, please wear a placard which says, "Now I'm a best-selling author."
No, but Dr.
So
Prabhu, I think this person is talking about you everywhere
yeah,
now. So the same person who was actually, in a negative field, just
yeah,
because you reached out and made that difference. So that is what.
yes,
So I think sometimes we don't
yes,
realize this. We should make an attempt. As you said, it may be difficult to begin with, but over
yes.
time, when you start seeing the positivity, it becomes very easy, Dr. Prabhu. But you have to make that first step. You take that first step. I think
That's
that is
right.
the
Yeah,
learning that I had.
yes, yes, yeah. So, Dr. Ventu, what about you? How do you deal with people who are negative in your life and don't want your good?
Yes, I had to learn from a very early age. After as I said, I have been called a lot of different names by religious people.
Yes.
And especially when yoga came into the conversation, that was a no-no for them. But I've realized it's no use to fight them because they come from a specific way of thinking or a religious background or a spiritual background or what they've been conditioned as well. And they don't always know. So it was for me a kind of a wake-up call. If you then believe, I said to myself, in what you are doing, and you think that is pure and right and noble, then live that life because they're going to see it. I've got an example where my in-laws told me that I'm from the devil because I was doing yoga. And so I just kept quiet. And years afterwards, she came back to us, especially my mother-in-law, and she said, you know what, my religious minister tells me you are evil, but I can't see the evil in you. And that was a tremendous breakthrough. So you focus on you, first things first, because we do not have to agree with anyone in life. We are all individuals, but what I believe is that we should respect and honor that which is inside of the person. If we can look through everything and find that core, spirituality or divinity, whatever term we would like to give it, and focus on that, then we empower the other person as well. And because of that empowering, they will then look through different eyes at us. I believe we like links in a chain. So each link is vitally important to make up the whole of the chain, to make it strong. And if we say life is a chain and we are all links, I have to honor and respect you too. Otherwise, we make the chain very weak. And if I judge you, I actually judge myself. And judging is just too high a price. And so in a way, over the years, when I was judged, it actually made me stronger because I had to go inside of me and say, so if this is true what they are saying, how do you see it differently and how do you live it differently? So then we come not just from theories and philosophies, but we come to being who we say we are. And within that, everyone can see and feel and experience the inner power that will radiate. And I believe through that, we do really lead people to a different way of looking at life.
Wonderful. Yes. I think this can also be a result of jealousies. People are also jealous of your success, jealous because you're doing something different, jealous because they don't, ignorant, of course, because they don't really understand. So maybe that's why when you introduce yoga into your life, they didn't understand what it was. And, you went against the stereotypes that were established in society. And yes, you have to be self-contained and kind of happy within yourself and believe in yourself to rule out these people and their comments and their opinions of you from your life and move on. I think we are almost closing, nearing the end, but I want to ask both of you for 3 to 4, or what are the essential, most required spiritual qualities for a leader, no matter what he's leading, but what are the most important spiritual qualities that a leader must have to succeed and to lead a good team? Mr. Singhel?
First is like the eye of the storm. Like even in the storm, you have to be very calm. Well, not because you're making an effort. Uh, by your own nature, you'd be calm irrespective of what turmoil and a storm is going around you. That I think would make a huge difference, because then you can think clearly. You can solve issues for society, for people, for the company in a very clear manner. So that calmness in you has to be there. Second, huge amount of love, respect, compassion for those around you. I think that is something which comes second. If you are not able to have that strong feeling of love, compassion, and feel for others, and usually feel from you should feel for it, not just you say it, you feel for people around you, and their sorrow, you can feel it, their love, happiness, you can experience it yourself. And that's the second attribute you clearly should be having on a lead. Third is your desire to solve issues which trouble the society or the environment around you, and your contribution to making the world a better place. I think that intense desire should be there in its own way. And fourth and finally, your own love for your own self, compassion for your own self, and being with you is something which is very critical. So there are 3 or 4 things which I feel that one has to progress on the path of leadership is what one should be building.
Yes, wonderful points, because I completely agree with you. Love, peace, compassion. Those are my breath, oxygen. I believe in them completely, and I know that you believe in them too, because your company has caringly yours as your tagline, which I just love. And you have an insurance for dogs, which is also something super. So that was wonderful. What about you, Dr. Venter? Give me 4, 5, spiritual must qualities, must qualities that you must have to be a good leader.
Well, I think I agree with Dr. Swami Gitananda that through yoga, one becomes aware. Something happens when, for me, I think my hero ingredient in life is pranayama, which is the science of breathing consciously. I think if everyone can for a moment be conscious of that breath that is happening inside of us every moment of our lives, the higher mind kicks in. And so for me, it's very important that a leader should have awareness, consciousness, and mindfulness. And the other things I've already said, I agree with all of that: respect and honor. And when we go to that essence that is inside of us, some call it God, some call it holy breath, we can call it prana. If we can just be aware of that, it will make us a more mindful, compassionate being. And if we become spiritually matured through our practices, whatever it may be for you, then we can live in love. And one is capable of working with others and living with others, or if you are a leader, leading other people. So I suppose mindfulness, consciousness, awareness, that things are very important for me within a leader.
Very well said. Yes, absolutely. I think my takeaway from this whole session and your concluding remarks are that, of course, love, care, show compassion to others, to yourself, and feel for them, like feel for others, like Mr. Singhel said. Do pranayam, like Dr. Venter said, because pranayam means mindful breathing, and mindful breathing will raise your consciousness and help you take decisions and lead your team in a very, very beautiful way. So thank you so much for being here today, Mr. Singhel and Dr. Venter. It has been a pleasure talking with you. Any last minute quick words you think you should have said but haven't said? Would you like to add something?
First of all, thank you, Dr. Prabhu. I think, I've been a student the past couple of years now. I've seen how passionate you are in making a difference in society, of putting this up as a spiritual festival. I think very few will think of putting, people who are experiencing, going through and getting it to the audience. I think you do a great job, and it was such a pleasure listening to Dr. Venter. I think her it clearly reflects from the way she says and feels, or what she's on this journey. And I think a platform of yours who brings all this together and then to the larger audience, I hope that, in contributing to world peace, this too shall make a big difference. So I think we should thank you, Dr. Prabhu. Thank you, Dr. Whitner, for
Most welcome.
the
My
opportunity to listen
pleasure.
to you. I really enjoyed listening to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now understand the significance of spirituality in leadership. Thank you, Mr. Tapan Singhel, Dr. Venter, and Dr. Manjari Prabhu for being IFSI guests. We will begin our next session, a talk on manifesting happiness through meditation at 3:15 p.m. See you then.